Well, welcome back, folks. It is now Monday, July 12th, and I'm out here in some dryland canola. The canola is looking a bit better this week. It really did benefit from those cooler temperatures and some of those showers we got last week. So it is continuing to flower, it is continuing to set pods, but you can really see how the conditions changed. Back at early bloom, it managed to set some pretty nice, decent-sized pods, but everything recently since then is substantially smaller. These pods do still have some time to develop, and I hope that they do get a bit bigger. But we will see what happens. If we get a few more showers, there's still some good potential in a few of these fields. Well, out here in this dryland Durham, I'm starting to see something I was hoping would not happen. We are getting new tiller growth down at the bottom. Now that we've had a little bit of moisture and cooler temperatures last week, it's decided it's going to try for a bit more yield. Unfortunately, by the time it gets there, the main stem is going to be ready to combine. These are, milk stage, they're filling. And now we got new tiller growth off the bottom, so not super nice. Here in this dryland wheat, you can see that now we had a little bit of moisture. We have a huge flush of volunteer canola coming up, as well as a whole new crop of tillers. So this will be real fun in a few weeks. I guess on the plus side, the tillers being nice and tender and green will give the grasshoppers something to eat other than the heads. Well, a lot of these dryland pea fields are really starting to turn color now, so this one here is probably 7 to 10 days away from pre-harvest application of either heat and glyphosate or a Reglone style diquat product. So these peas are getting pretty good and solid now. These pods are pretty well filled out. They're starting to dry down, get a little bit leathery. So we're definitely getting there. So if you want to see a really good refresher, last year Brant and Joel from Syngenta did a video for me on Reglone Ion, and I highly recommend watching that again. So I'm going to stick a link to that right there. Well, here in this dryland barley, we're also seeing a big influx of new tillers since last week. So that little bit of moisture is basically, causing new growth since these were so stressed. And, a lot of these main heads aren't filled out and have basically almost nothing to fill. So the plant is trying to go for round 2, which will make quite the mess when it's combine timing for the main heads. And we've got all this green material from the tillers in here, but that's assuming that this field is even going to be combined in the first place. Well, here's some lentils I pulled up. They got a little bit of botrytis on them. I'll get my camera to focus. A little bit of gray mold on them there, and this middle one here has a wireworm in the root as well. So just because we're so far beyond seeding doesn't mean wireworms can't still cause damage. No doubt that has helped contribute to the infection here, and you can see, actually you can see right there a nice patch of that gray mold. Yeah, you can really tell the difference now between the dryland wheat and the irrigated. Quite a striking contrast. Well, here along the edge of this canola field that was so rotten full of grasshoppers last week, it still is, but we did spray it with Coragen. So all around the outside of the field is these dead grasshoppers all over the place here. So as they come into the field and they feed, they're picking up that Coragen and it's shutting them down, and they're dying off. But there is still an absolute pile of them moving in from the ditch. Certainly no shortage of them. But some of this canola is getting chewed up pretty bad. You can see here they've been feeding on some of these pods since there's almost no leaf material left. Well, this dryland barley is continuing to struggle even after the little rain showers we got last week. It is at least filling. It's nicely into milk stage now, getting some content in these heads. A lot of them are stubbornly refusing to leave the boot, but that is to be expected in stressful conditions like this. Well, here you can really see this pea field is turning color, and pods are really starting to dry down. We're just starting to get a little bit of rattle some of these pods here now. We're probably, this field is probably around a week away from Reglone Ion timing. There's still a little too much grass green in here. It's going to take a few more days, but it's only Tuesday, so it might even be ready by the weekend. Oh, the safflower looking pretty good this week. You can see we do have some nice flower buds starting to form on there on the tips of all those branches. So probably in a week or two, this field is going to be in flower and it'll look quite different. Well, my winter wheat by Picture Butte is getting silaged today. The swather is making a bit of a slow progress through here. She is lodged pretty good, but he's doing a really good job of it, taking 99% of it off. So good on these guys, and looks like it's going to yield pretty well. Well, here in this barley field by Lethbridge that had a bad outbreak of grasshoppers 2 weeks ago, we did spray this 2 weeks ago with Coragen, and it is still having an effect along the outside of the field. You can see all these dead hoppers down here along the outside row, some of them very recent. So it is still having some of an effect, but no doubt probably reduced from what it was. And this field is now in dough stage, and it is rapidly drying down. Very, very severe drought stress in a lot of the area. So it's not really worth a second application to top up that coverage at this point. Most of the field, there's very little green left to eat at this point. Well, I'm not sure whose field this is, but the grasshoppers are apparently bad enough they're flowing out onto the road. It almost looks like pea gravel on the road. So let's pull in and take a quick look. Yeah, this field is pretty bad. There's a few, if any, leaves left on these plants. There's grasshoppers everywhere. They are beginning to feed on the heads and definitely overflowing onto the road. Well, the potatoes are looking pretty good. I know they don't really like to develop too terribly well when it's really hot out. They prefer cooler weather, but they are setting flowers and stuff like that, so looking good for now. Speaking of potatoes, these two new harvesters just showed up. These are DeWolfs. I'm not entirely sure what the model is on them, but you will see them in operation later in the season on drone video. Well, here along the edge of this lentil field that's having a problem with grasshoppers right along the edge here coming out of the ditch, you'll notice when you look at these lentil plants here, there's absolutely zero pods. You have to go 10 yards or so into the field before you find pods. And the reason for that is those grasshoppers will get right in there and they'll eat those pods when they're super small and tender, just coming right out of the flowers. The grasshoppers will actually part the flowers to eat that tender young pod. And that's why you don't see pods along the edge of the field. And that's also why you don't see like almost any foliar feeding on these lentils. They're targeting the pods, not the rest of the foliage. So that's why the grasshopper threshold in lentils is usually only 2 to 3 grasshoppers per square meter. Well, there's a huge volume of grasshoppers coming off this pasture here down by McGrath, and you can see this burdock has been stripped down to just skeletons. For some reason, grasshoppers really seem to like burdock. You can see this one here just has the flowers left on top basically, and the rest of it has been totally defoliated. Well, I've been getting lots of messages about these little guys in the last week or so. There's some decent swarms of them around, and these little fuzzy guys are called skippers, specifically European skipper. So they are kind of an invasive species, and their caterpillar actually eats grass. They're only really considered to be a threat to something like a timothy field kind of thing. And yeah, they're not really going to affect any of your other crops. The adults are actually considered pollinators, so they are valuable to have. Well, the irrigated canola here by Lethbridge is still doing really good. We're just starting to come down from full bloom now, and we've got absolutely piles and piles of pods are set in here. We did spray for bugs a couple weeks ago, and the numbers really have not recovered. There's only 1 or 2 ligas and 10 sweeps and almost nothing for seed pod weevil. So right now we're looking good. Well, this week by Lethbridge, the corn is looking really good. It's now as tall or taller than me and doing pretty well. We're going to have tassel emergence in here pretty much right away. It is right up in here now, so we're going to see that probably next week when I'm here. Well, these oats by Colehurst are up pretty good now, so the fields that were just barely emerged last week are now at 2-leaf stage, so they are ready to get sprayed. So we're going to come in here with some Enforcer M in the next few days and get all this canola, the sow thistle, and the kochia under control. Well, up here by Carmen Gay, it is another smoky hot day. It doesn't really feel or look like it, but the air temperature is 35 degrees Celsius right now. But with that smoky overcast, it feels strange. But we did get some moisture up here last week, and now you can see this canola is starting to bud again. It is throwing out a whole bunch of new side branches, putting out a lot of buds. It's probably not going to have enough moisture to fill those, but it's going to try anyways. So this field is going to yellow up again in the next couple days as those buds open, and hopefully we get some pods filled out of it. Well, on the barley up at Carmen Gay, that moisture last week was enough to fill these heads, which is nice to see, but it was also enough to start sending out new tillers, as well as bringing up more volunteer canola. So this is all going to be a problem at harvest time, and it is going to be interesting. Well, the last couple of weeks in the wheat and the barley, there has been some bacterial leaf stripe has been showing up. It's kind of an interesting looking disease. It can just look like a surfactant burn when it very first starts, or even like a really mild case of rust, but it'll soon develop into these long lesions like this. And if you get it at just the right time, like after the pivot's gone over, it'll actually feel slimy on the bottom side, or in this case, once it's dried out, you'll actually see some crystals. You can feel bumps, like crystally bumps on there. And that's basically the bacteria and the exudates from the plant drying out and crystallizing. You don't always see it. Quite often, like this one's a little bit older and there's no sliminess or crystals to it at all. Well, it's been a while since we did a giveaway, so why don't we do one for some hats here? So we got some nice fluorescent colors. We got normal looking hats as well, AgroPlus hats. But if you can identify this weed and you go into the office and you tell Judy the proper name for it, first 10 people will get a free hat. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.